I'm Skobog and welcome to my Chambers of Xeric guide. On screen is what we will and won't be covering. This guide is aimed at players who are new to Chambers or those who want to know the more advanced Olm tactics like skipping. There's timestamps in the video to skip to the parts that you want, so let's get right into it. Starting off with requirements, there's some relatively high combat requirements at 80+, recommended 90+. Beyond that you'll need 70 prayer with piety, 78 herb lore for in-raid potion making, and 55 farming to farm the herbs to make those potions. Plugin wise, just download those that you see on screen and we'll see what they do as we go along. How do you get to the raid? It's just under the Kebos lowlands on the map. Best travel methods are Fairy Ring, BLS and Run North, the Lovokenge minecart network, where once you've done a couple of raids, you'll get an ancient tablet, which can be used on a Xeric's talisman, which will teleport you straight there. Once you're there, make your way to the recruiting board, you can gear inside the raid. Make sure you and your friends are in the same chat channel, not clan chat, and don't leave it during the raid or it will disband unless someone is ranked. Interact with the board, click make a party, and you'll see some settings pop up. I'd recommend leaving them as is unless you want to scale it for more points, but that'll also make it more difficult. Make sure you have challenge mode unticked as well as large raids as they're generally inefficient. You're now ready to go in to the entrance to the northwest. Once you get in, you should see a bank chest with some steps to exit as well. You should also see a scout overlay in the top left, provided you have it turned on the Chambers of Xeric plugin. This tells you what rooms you'll have throughout the raid, and on screen now is a breakdown of those rooms and their respective mini bosses. To get a new layout, simply right click the exit and hit reload until you get one you like. The scout overlay tells you which order your scav, combat and farming rooms are at the very top as well. And a good layout is generally 3 combat rooms with 2 puzzles, but it doesn't matter too much. The best thing to save time is to get a layout that drops enough overload pluses for your team as per the diagram. This setup can be used to complete any combination of rooms. I'm conscious it might still be expensive for some of you, if so feel free to substitute for the things on screen. Once you get used to the raid you can start to optimise things like only bringing the equipment for the rooms that you need. If you don't like my recommendation, there's also the 3 recommended wiki setups on screen now from minimum to max-ish. The Gear Discord or We Do Raids Discord have more detailed breakdowns including prior upgrades if you want to know more. Spellbook wise, it's only a necessity to at least have one person with a water spell, and that's for the final boss fight. A couple of spells count for that, including any water spell on standard, any ice spell on ancient, and humidify on the lunar spellbook. Prayer wise, you don't need rigor and augury, but I'd recommend having piety at minimum. Moving on to the raid rooms, scav up first. These are the rooms where you get your secondaries for potions and planks for chest upgrades. You'll want to farm your secondaries at the last scav room in the raid, which again you can tell from the last S on your scout overlay. There's sometimes shortcuts in these rooms that you can complete for points, but it's not necessary, and there's also yellow energy pools. Up next is Guardians. It's a pretty straightforward combat room. Make sure you use your stamina and combat pots with melee gear on. Spec with a Dragon Warhammer if you have it, and kill them with your pickaxe on smash or crush by flinching. On screen's an example, and the only hard thing about it is that when you're in groups you need to make sure that you stay synced up or you'll cause unnecessary damage. Both Guardians need to die before you can go through the door, and they drop seeds which you may or may not want to pick up, depending how early into the raid you are. Shamans is another straightforward combat room, pretty much the same as normal Lizardman Shamans. Kill them with range unless you have a shadow, and pray range with an appropriate offensive prayer. You can trap them in certain spots and outrange them, but just dodge spits, jumps and purple boys and kill them. Again, seeds are dropped, but it depends where you are on the raid, whether you want to pick them up or not. Muttadiles, this one's a slightly more annoying room, there's a lot of damage that goes out. Attack the small one with mage, pray melee, stand in melee, attack the big one with range, pray range and stay out of range. CGS where you can, near 50% HP to stop them eating and healing at the tree. Alternatively, chop the tree down with the axe provided. This room drops 2 overloads, make sure to pick them up and any other supplies you need. Mystics, this is another easy room. Simply kill them with range unless you've got a shadow and no T-bow. Pray mage and try to make it so that only one attacks you at once. You can semi-safe spot them by getting close to them and changing them to melee mode, and then getting them stuck on specific diagonals and corners of the room. They drop seeds again, but it's up to you whether you pick them up. Tekton, this one's a bit harder. Make sure you get your best melee crush on, or a fang, and are stam potted plus combated. Walk near him to activate and run back quick. Dump some defense reduction specs and run round in the pattern shown on screen. Your first defense reduction is guaranteed to hit, and make sure to skip attacking on a corner if you're using a 5-tick weapon. This needs to be done in sync as a group, otherwise it can get a bit messy. You'll periodically go back to the anvil and you'll need to dodge falling sparks by walking around, and just a quick warning that other sparks can hurt you. Repeat this until he's dead. For Vanguards, you're going to need the combat triangle. The Cox Vanguard plugin I told you to install will make this room a bit easier to tell which Vanguard is which. It's just the usual: use range to kill mage, mage to kill melee, melee to kill range, and pray the appropriate one. The strat here is to pick a corner and stay in it, letting the Vanguards rotate, or everyone follows their own Vanguard. You need to keep them within 40% HP of each other, or they will heal up. The melee can wander at times, so watch out for that, and you're guaranteed 1 overload but could get up to 3. Vasa can look a bit scary, but it's actually not too bad. You'll need range and melee stab here. It'll awaken on entering the room and quickly teleport players, some near, some far. Near players can't move or pray, far players can and should run to Vasa while praying mage to reduce the damage from a bomb that's about to go off on everyone. Alternatively, you can venge it for some extra DPS. Straight after it, get your range prayer up and range gear on and attack while moving 2 spaces to dodge the boulders that it throws. Vasa will approach a crystal, and once he reaches one, swap to melee and stab the crystal ASAP. Once you kill it, Vasa will come back out, rinse and repeat with the occasional teleport, which will depend on your DPS. Vasa will drop an overload, so just watch out for that and make sure to pick it up. If you're new to Chambers or have low DPS and or gear, avoid Vespula and Scouts. The aim here is to destroy the portal in the room using your most powerful range or mage gear and a flinch redemption method, preferring mage. Doing this, you'll notice grubs in the room losing HP. You can feed them using plants from the back of the room, which will stop soldiers spawning and killing you. You should be out DPSing their spawn however, so if you're not, just avoid the room. Make sure you're stammed up for this room as well, because you don't want to run out in the middle of it, because standing under Vespula does a lot of damage. On to the puzzle rooms now. Up first is crabs. The objective here is to get the orb that's coming out the wall to hit the crystals. You can get the orb to change direction by hitting the crabs, and also colour depending on what you attack the crab with. There's a key down the bottom right for what style causes what colour on the crab, and you can also smash them in place with a hammer to make this a bit easier, but generally each person should take a crab and move them to position. You should have the crab positions needed if you installed the plugins that I asked for in the start. Pray melee while doing this to avoid damage. Next up is Ice Demon. There's 2 phases here, but it's pretty easy. In the first phase, pick up the axe and the tinder box on the floor and chop the saplings to get kindling. This will be used with the braziers to melt the boss into spawning. You can get a few stacks or just light them straight away, but make sure the braziers don't run out before the Ice Demon shield thaws. Have a tank designated before the second phase, and when it spawns, everyone go to the darker side and the tank to the lighter side of the room against the wall. Ice Demon should only attack the tank in this case, who will pray range, will attack moving every 2 Ice Demon range battles. The Thieving Room is possibly the easiest room in the raid. It's a puzzle room where you open chests, you get the grubs, you use them on the trough beside the scav, he eats them and eventually moves out the way to sleep. There are 3 chests which can damage you when open. It looks like you'll be poisoned, but you won't be. And there'll be another chest which contains bats, which are raid food, and they'll give a small amount of points when you eat them. One of the last few rooms on our list before the final boss is Tightrope, and for some reason it's a puzzle room. Kill everything with range starting with the majors. Make sure to pull one at a time as things can do a lot of DPS to you here. Pray mage will kill in mages and range will kill in rangers. While killing the rangers, use the wall to flinch to get a 1-to-1 attack or to just generally hide if you're taking too much DPS. Someone should go over the rope and get the crystal, which is used to dispel the door to get to the next room, and this can be done if all rangers have been tanked or after they're dead. The last room we're going to cover is the farm/prep room. You might encounter one of these early on in the raid, just ignore it, there's always a farm room just before the last boss. Warning, there might not be a scav room directly beside it for your secondaries, it could be further back, so always make sure to check your scout to see when your last scav room was. In this room you'll find a bank chest, upgrade it and bank your items to make potions quicker in farming. Old tools, these will help you farm the herbs that you need to make your potions for the final boss. Gourd tree, that's where you get essentially your vials to make your potions, and then a geyser to fill those gourds. There's also a farm patch, that's where you'll grow your seeds that you've picked up elsewhere in the raid. If you didn't pick up any on your way, you can use the old tools to rake a patch in the next room. If you haven't already, make sure you go to get your secondaries from the closest scav room. You'll need juice for brews, mushrooms for restores, and Sicily for prayer enhance. You'll need one of each of those if you intend to make overloads. Plant the seeds that you need for your potions. Generally, if you had a good layout, you should already have 3 doses of overload for everyone, plus a prayer enhance, and only need to plant Butchu. The recipe for overloads is however on screen. They require Golpart and Noxfer. Take your vials and fill them while you're waiting on the stuff growing, and either use the geyser or humidify if you have it. Next, grab your vials and your secondaries so you can start picking and making your potions. You want to aim for 4 revitalizations, which are restores, 8 to 12 Xeric aids, which are brews, 1 prayer enhance, and 1 overload with at least 3 doses. Once you have your potions, head through to the next room and climb down the hole. Here you'll find a bank and a safe room before the final boss fight. This is where you'll want to gear up, dropping 1 Xeric aid and revitalization on the ground. Gear wise, you just need your melee gear, mage gear and range gear, plus your special attack weapon, preferably a defense reduction one, and 1 person with a water spell of nearly any kind. Potion wise, take what you're comfortable with, drop extra switches for more brews, restores, etc, but at minimum you're going to need 1 overload, 1 enhance, 3 restores and the rest brews for whatever spaces you've got. When everyone's ready, drink a dose of overload, chug a brew, chug a dose of super restore and drop that super restore, then pick up the ones that you dropped before. Now you're ready to go in. I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna die here, but this next section will hopefully make you die a little less. This is the Olm room with some handy markers, and you'll find those in the description. Olm has 3 body parts that are attackable, left hand, right hand and head, and it has 4 phases. In short, you want to DPS the hands down with the appropriate style for the first 3 phases, and then kill the head in the last one. We'll go into more detail on the exact tactics after we teach you the mechanics. There are different types of attacks and mechanics in their categories. Their category will be useful to know later on. Pause this if you want to read about it, but we're going to show you each one of them. First up is basic attacks. Range attacks look like a small green ball. Mage attacks look like a dragon attack. And the coloured orb, well, it looks like a coloured orb. Always pray mage or range throughout the fight, except from when a coloured orb comes out. Beyond this, Olm will have access to phase specific basic attacks, depending on what the chat box says in phases 1 and 2, and has access to them all in 3 and 4. Starting with Flame Wall, here someone gets trapped, use water spells to douse and get them out or they take a lot of damage. You can also throw out a green fireball to burn people over time, which can spread, so stay spread. The acid variants are acid spray and drip. For spray, just don't stand in the pools that are shot out. For drip, walk or run around, not standing in the same tile for too long. The crystal variants are a targeted fallen crystal and a crystal bomb. For the targeted player, just walk while attacking, being careful not to get hit by the delayed fallen crystal. A person with it will have a red circle around them. Bomb will be fired out, just make sure you're not in its 4x4 radius before it explodes, which will happen after a few seconds on the ground. The next category is special attacks and mechanics, which will only happen in phases 1 to 3 in a very specific order. I'll cover more on this later. On crystal bursts, you will see crystals coming out the ground underneath you. Move immediately as you see them, sometimes they're hard to see. Lightning just goes across the room from the edges, dodge it or wave skip it. If you're hit, your prayer will get disabled and you'll be unable to move for a second. Finally, there's teleports or swaps. You'll be paired with someone else with their coloured rings, stack on each other generally at the thumb, or be damaged based on how far apart you are. The last category is miscellaneous. On phases 1 and 2, melee hand might clench and stop you attacking, just attack the mage hand instead. On phase 3, an infinity symbol will appear instead of the clench and heal any damage done to it. Fallen crystals happen between phases 1, 2 and 3 and throughout phase 4. Crystals fall from the sky, keep 1 tile gap between you and the shadow of the crystal. On phase 4, life siphon can also happen. It's a blue pool that shoots out and you need to stand on it before it triggers. This will stop the head from healing and you from taking more damage. Now we know all the mechanics. The basic strategy is 1 person on melee hand, 1 person on mage and as many as you want running for 3+ man raids. Person on melee hand attacks it and stays in the melee zone for every phase, where possible, not crossing the line. The major does the same, but for mage hand. The runners run from one side to another in the centre of the room. This is where Olm's head turning mechanic comes in. Olm can look left, middle and right of the room and will only attack those in those regions. Olm turns to the most players, and this setup means that the head will be forced to turn and runners should never be attacked if done properly. Here's a quick animation to demonstrate it. The runners should be killing the mage hand with the major, and once it's dead, switch to melee, except on phase 3, where the hands need to die together, and you start on melee hand until the first heal comes. On phase 4, use the same structure, except from kill the head with ranged. It is worth noting the melee and mage zone swap if Olm is on the other side. And that's it for the basic kill structure. Feel free to go in and try it. However, if you want to know the advanced special skipping strategy, keep watching. This advanced strategy further utilises Olm's head turner mechanic and its structured attack cycle to skip the special attacks, crystals, lightning and teleports. On screen is the duo method for those who need it, but I'm going to do most of my talking and examples on Trio Plus. This setup is much the same as the basic strategy, except from the major is now a mage skipper. They essentially move to the middle tile when the runners move fully over, tank a hit, join the runners quickly and then move back to the mage when the head turns. This method is easier to show and I've got another quick animation for you. The timing of the skip that the major is doing is very important and used to be done at a specific point in Olm's attack cycle, but essentially you want the Olm head to have no one to cast a special on when it tries to. We're going to have to teach the attack cycles for this, and the attack cycles are as follows for different phases. This is the attack cycle for phases 1 and 2, and simply put, Olm does 1 attack, 2 attacks, special, and repeats this until it's worked its way through all the specials. The mage skipper wants to be moving from the centre line to the runners immediately after the second basic attack to skip the specials while the mage hand is alive. Here's an example of the cycle without skipping to get you used to following the pattern. Phase 3, the pattern extends slightly as it gains access to another special attack, the hand heal. The basics are still the same though, 1, 2 special, but it does this 4 times instead of 3. The example will show skipping, but pay attention to the label down the bottom left to see when we're doing it properly and when we're not. Here's an example of where we mess up the skip, so we all move back over to the mage side, tank 2 hits to get it back into cycle. You might notice an anomaly here, where Olm casts a special and an attack at the same time. It has a catch-up mechanic for basic attacks, so that you don't skip them. In phase 4, the head phase, the cycle is a lot simpler as there's no special attacks. Here you'll do the same as the basic tactic, someone goes mage zone, someone goes melee, and the rest run as normal as you range the head. I've included an example in this cycle too.
All right, see you next guard. See ya. Gosh, that would bang, mate, that would.